VSDC Blend Modes Part 2. Clear, Source, and Destination. You might want to hit the pause button at times so you have time to read. I think it's some good information. Now, VSDC groups its composition blend modes differently than other software. It doesn't break them down into the darken group, the lighten group, contrast, but it does break them down into what I think of as number one, the masking group, which hides and reveals objects, the compositing group, which switches layer functions, invisibility and transparency, and number three, the blending group that blends layers and colors. Now, don't take this as fact, it's just the way that I think of them. Now, if you understand, let us know down in the comments. Just, drop a line down there in the comments, and I'm sure that'll not just help me out, but some other people too. I know I need to know. Now, today we're going to skip over the masking group because we've already talked about them, although there is a lot more to be said about them. And we'll go straight over here to the compositing group that you see over here on the left. And also, yes, I meant to put XOR in this group. Let's talk a little bit about transparency. Now, these composition modes can make objects transparent. In other words, you can't see the object, but you can see through it to the object that it covers. Let's call this transparency. Number two, they can also make objects transparent, but not see-through. Transparency does two things. These blend modes cause transparency in two ways. They can make objects transparent. In other words, you can't see the object, but you can see through it to the object that it covers. So we're going to call that transparency. The other way they do it is they can make objects transparent, but not see-through. In other words, you can't see the object or anything that it covers. I'm going to start calling this opaque transparency because it just makes more sense. I think I understand the way VSDC accomplishes this, but I'm not going to go there right now. Now, I'm going to use 4 objects today. You see them there on the screen. The composition mode list you see on the left there. I'm also going to use the rectangle, and I'm going to use the ellipse, and also I'm going to use the transparent scene background back there. Now, if you're going to try to do this, if you're going to do this, that's what you're going to need. You're going to need those 4 things, the 3 objects and the scene area. My rectangle is the top layer. It's also what is called the source or the blend layer. It overlaps the other objects in 3 places, and I'll show you right here. Right there where the white rectangle and the red ellipse overlaps. That's one place right there. The second place where it overlaps, where the rectangle covers the composition mode list. And you see over here where the white rectangle overlaps the scene area. So you see my rectangle overlaps the other 3 objects in 3 places. Those are the parts that the blend modes affect. Now, I want you to remember something. Your canvas scene area acts as the base layer for the bottom layer, which is what I've actually been saying all this time, but I just thought I'd make that statement. I've got a couple more things I want to say here too. Let's take a minute to think about this. Every layer except the top layer is the base layer for the layer above it. So that means that you can add a blend mode on every layer, of course, except for our scene area. And remember, the canvas or the scene area affects things also. So you really should consider that as an object layer too. So now your bottom layer is the blend layer for your canvas. So just think about this. I think I mentioned it in another video. you want to make that canvas whatever color you want to show as a background, especially if you're using transparency in your video. Now, here's something else that we'll talk about another time. If you have multiple objects on one layer, on a single layer, you can use the properties box to change the blend modes for each individual object on that layer. So that's a lot of blending. We're not going to demonstrate that today. And we're just going to work on the top layer, which is the source blend layer. So I have 4 objects: the source, the destination, the composition area menu, and the transparent scene background. Our rectangle, right now you see that our rectangle is on top. So it is the source blend layer. The top layer can never be the base layer. Number 2, our ellipse is on the next layer below the rectangle, and it is the destination base layer and the background for the rectangle. Our composition menu is the next layer below the ellipse, so it's now the destination base layer and the background for the ellipse. And of course, our transparent scene area is the destination base layer for the composition menu and the final background for this entire project. Now remember, every layer acts as the blend source layer for the layer below it. It acts as the base destination layer for the layer above it. After all, it's on top, and it can never be a base destination layer, right? Well, we'll see about that later on. Composition blend modes in VSDC will work slightly different than composition modes in other programs like Photoshop and GIMP. So don't go by your prior experiences with those other softwares. Okay, so let's go through our first 3 blend modes: clear, source, and destination. The first one on the list is clear. If you go to the source layer, the top layer, left click on the blend tab and then select clear, this is what happens. It places the source on top. It makes the source invisible, opaque transparency, because you can't see the layers below it. Change the scene background to black, and you can see that clear is what's causing the invisibility here. The next one in our list is source. If you change it to source, the source blend mode places the source object on top, and it's now totally visible. It's opaque. You can't see through it. Number 2, nothing covered by the source object is visible, not even scene background. Let me go back to number 1 for a minute. When I said the source places the source on top, the source blend mode places the source on top, and it makes it totally visible. It makes it opaque. In other words, remember I have a white rectangle, so my rectangle is now completely white. If it was black, it would be completely black. It would be opaque, and you can't see through it. Nothing that the object covers can be seen. We're right here where it covers the red ellipse. Over here where it covers the composition menu. Over here. And the scene background, where it covers the scene background, you can't see it. If you change that scene background to any color and that you want to change it, you'll see clearly what happens. Okay, see, the same thing what I said before. You can't see anything that source layer covers. Let's talk about destination here for a minute. Now, if you change that blend mode to destination, this is what happens. Destination places the destination on top, and it makes the source completely transparent. And I said transparent there because you can't see that source layer no more. It's like it took the source layer completely out. So it looks like the destination is now the source layer, and the original source layer is completely gone. But it's not. It's still there in the timeline. If you change the background, we see that the source object is completely transparent. It's not invisible. Opaque transparency. Look at that. See, our destination is there, but our source is gone. In our next video, we're going to take a look at 3 other blend modes, composition modes. This is going to be some pretty good stuff, I think, so don't forget to come back and check it out. I hope I made this clear and understandable. Please let us know by leaving a message down in the comments. It'll really help me to improve my content, and I really appreciate your help.